Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the media focus on Boris Johnson's attempts to break his Brexit promises to both the EU, with whom he says he's trying to get a trade deal, and the British public who voted him power on the basis of those promises. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there are two types of promise really that Boris Johnson gave about the Brexit in his withdrawal agreement. There was the legally binding ones and those in the political declaration. Now, Boris Johnson has attempted to break both, though he and his ministers have recently started owning up when facing scrutiny by MPs to the fact that they will have to go along with the promises that they signed into law. I mean, that should be taken as read generally, but you can't take anything for granted with Boris Johnson, can you? And that includes, of course, the checks on goods and the physical infrastructure needed for those goods checks between some things passing between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But I want to focus on the political declaration here. Now, the political declaration is not legally binding, and the more simple-minded in the Brexiteer camp seem to think that this is the binding argument, that it's not legally binding, so he doesn't have to do it. But nothing could be further from the truth. So to begin with, such items were promised by Boris Johnson to the electorate. So he implored the British public to give him a parliamentary majority, which they duly did, on the basis that he would maintain and even improve, he said, workers' rights and environmental protections. That was specifically mentioned in the general election campaign. Yes, you know, he doesn't have to legally do that, but it is absolutely impossible to claim that he has any mandate from the public to deliver on his form of Brexit, when his form of Brexit is now, in many respects, the opposite of what he promised in the general election campaign. In fact, the simple fact that he changed the withdrawal agreement bill after the election means that he's already broken his promise to the electorate, regardless of what he does now. People voted to get Brexit done on the basis of the Brexit that he showed them in writing. Here it is, here's the Brexit withdrawal bill, this is what I did. And then the Brexit withdrawal bill was promptly torn up and replaced with something different. Take, for example, his promise to maintain food standards, not only for the benefit of the nation's health, but also, you would think, for the livelihood of British farmers. Well, 2 weeks ago, MPs voted to abolish those standards in an amendment to the agriculture bill. Yep, perfectly legal, but it's also undemocratic. But I don't want to go on further about Johnson breaking the democratic covenant with the British people, because that's what effectively sets up. You set up a covenant when you say, vote me into office and I will do this, this and this, and then you do the opposite. It's collectively our fault for voting for a man into high office on the basis of promises that any sensible person should have known he would break. He's a well-known compulsive liar and opportunist. He will say anything at all to get what he wants in the short term without any thought at all for what it will do in the long term. But there's another side to this. After all, the Brexiteers aren't going to keep bashing the British public on a regular basis. Doesn't look good. It's much more fun to bash the EU, and they're using Johnson's dishonesty to do just that. The EU Commission, and of course the negotiating team on their behalf, are saying that Boris Johnson must stick by the promises he made, even in the political declaration, if he wants to negotiate a deal with them. It's not enough to simply reluctantly go along with the legal promises. They want all of the things he promised them. But that's not fair, cried the Brexiteers. The political declaration isn't binding. It's not legally binding. No, it isn't. But nor is there a legal imperative for the EU to give the UK a deal. Just as Johnson didn't legally promise to defend workers' rights, environmental protections, taxation laws or food standards, nor did the EU legally promise to give us a deal. It's what you call negotiating. The EU can demand that Johnson keeps his promises, not because that's the law, but because, well, that's their negotiating position and their negotiating hand is strong enough to demand it. In addition, it's not a simple case of the EU demanding that Johnson keeps his promises just because they're strong enough to do so. It's against their interests not to demand this. If the EU agreed to a deal that allows the UK to water down standards below that of EU countries, or even non-EU countries with access to the single market, then other countries will want to know why they have to be put at such a competitive disadvantage. Even the United States, now surely nobody is going to deny that the United States is a much more powerful nation than the United Kingdom. And what this would do would actually to force the United States to agree to more stringent standards when trading with the EU than the UK would have to. I mean, that position would be, of course, ridiculous. It would actually be a step towards the Brexiteers' wet dream of the breakup of the EU, in fact. So the EU cannot afford to let Johnson break his promises and still give him a deal. Bear in mind that the promises Johnson made, both legally binding and not, were the bare minimum he had to in order to get his deal. The reason Theresa May failed to get an agreement is because there was no deal possible that would satisfy both the EU and the hard-right Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party. But Boris Johnson agreed such a deal, you might say. No, he didn't. He made promises that just about won over the EU. He gave the bare minimum that the EU were asking for, and then told the hard-right Eurosceptic wing of his party that he would be breaking all of those promises the second we were no longer members. He was telling them, as soon as we're not members anymore, we've got it through. We don't have to do anything. We can do it ourselves. We can do what we like. That's what he told them, and that's what they went along with. Because those in the ERG, those hardened Eurosceptics in the Tory party, do not want the withdrawal agreement. They don't like it, even though they ended up voting for it. And basically, all of this came out last week amongst the Dominic Cummings furore. You know, never mind the attempts by some Brexiteers to try and claim that opposition to Dominic Cummings is only on the side of Remainers, that it's a Brexit thing. No, it's not. There were leading Brexiteers in the Tory party, most notably Steve Baker, Peter Bone, calling for Cummings to go. And as part of their rant about Cummings and how Johnson broke his promise to get rid of him, because they don't want Dominic Cummings there at all. In fact, they are aggrieved that Boris Johnson said that as soon as Brexit had been delivered, Dominic Cummings would no longer be in place. He was only there to deliver that Brexit. They're not happy that Johnson has even kept him on as long as he has. And they also revealed as part of that they also only voted for his Brexit deal on the basis that Boris Johnson would renege on all his promises. So where does that leave us? I mean, politically, it's hard to see how Johnson can do anything. If he agrees to stick by his promises and negotiates a deal with the EU on that basis, he won't get it through Parliament because his own MPs will oppose it. If he continues to refuse to keep his promises, well, then the EU won't proceed any further with the deal because they can't. They simply can't afford to. It's that simple. And if Johnson takes us out without a deal at the end of the year, he will suffer the political onslaught from the public over food and medicine shortages, as well as massive economic damage on a regional basis. But that's a separate issue which I'll likely cover later this week. The key point is that Johnson told two different parties, the Eurosceptics and the EU, contradictory things in order to make short-term gain. But it's impossible to keep them both on side now that we're at crunch time when they both want opposite things. The EU want Boris Johnson to stick by all of his promises. The ERG want him to break all of his promises. There isn't really a middle way there, is there? In 30 days' time, if Boris Johnson hasn't sought an extension to the transition period, then it won't be possible to do so without changing the law. And to change the law would need MPs to vote for it. Now, he could actually do that without the Eurosceptic wing of his party because opposition MPs would vote in favour of it, but it would expose divisions in the Conservative Party that would inevitably result in a vote of no confidence in his leadership, and then that's his political power gone. So basically he's buggered, and because he's buggered, so are we. It's going to be a bumpy ride on the Brexit train this month. It is going to be very, very revealing. I absolutely guarantee there are going to be a lot of twists and turns, and then we'll see where we are at the end of it. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.